Put $2 in the jukebox, one dime at a time. $2 in the jukebox.
How do you listen to music?
I listen with music apps like Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud on my phone and my headphones in my car.
I listen on my phone through Spotify while I wear headphones or listen to a speaker, or in my car.
I use Spotify, and I usually have headphones, or I listen in the car with my friends.
I use Apple Music and Spotify, and most of the time it's just on my phone or my laptop through like my AirPods.
When you hear the word jukebox, what do you think of?
Older music, like my grandparents, like what they listen to their music off of.
Like an old diner or like an old club back in the 50s.
I think of like the 50s or 60s. Usually like you have to pay for music.
I think of my mountain house. We have a jukebox with a bunch of like 60s and 70s music in it, and it just reminds me of like being around my family and stuff like that.
Have you ever listened to a jukebox in real life?
No, I don't believe so.
I have. There's a barbecue place in my town that has a jukebox in it that I used to play as a kid.
I have downtown in Fredericksburg.
Yeah, all the time. When I'm up in the Poconos with my family, we just play it, and we have like family like shuffleboard competitions and stuff, and we just play like a bunch of old music, and it just reminds me of good times with my family.
As you can tell from the interviews, the jukebox is no longer a common form of listening to music. However, in mid-century America, the jukebox was a quintessential piece of the American social landscape and played a pivotal role in shaping adolescent and popular culture of the time. While this music playing machine is now not commonly found in restaurants today, the jukebox was an important early way in which Americans gained control over the music they consumed and listened to. Let's learn about the jukebox.
My jukebox baby takes the floor around the old jukebox.
On November 23, 1898, inventor Louis Glass would premiere the world's first coin and slot phonograph at San Francisco's Palais Royal Saloon, playing songs off a small selection of wax cylinders that listeners could enjoy one at a time using earphones, and earning $1,000 in nickels in its first month. If the name coin and slot phonograph sounds unfamiliar, that's because it is. Over the course of the next couple of decades, these music-playing devices would be first nicknamed automatic entertainers, not jukeboxes. The name jukebox would not come about until the late 1930s, sometime between 1937 and 1940, as Southern Americans began to refer to restaurants and diners that carried the machines as juke joints, based on the Gullah word for rowdy or disorderly. While companies would continue to officially advertise their machines as phonographs well into the 60s and even 70s, the nickname jukebox refers to the music machines just as effectively. So, how did the jukebox as we know it come to be? In the 1870s, Thomas Edison invented a mechanism for recording human speech, essential for recorded music. By 1885, Chichester A. Bell and Charles Sumner Tater would improve upon this technology with their graphophone, which could play music by floating a stylus over wax cylinders, the first form of recorded music used in the phonograph. Next would be the addition of a vending machine component, first done by Louis Glass, which allowed for individuals to play and hear songs on their own with just a coin. Interestingly, vending machines had existed for thousands of years, as they were first used in ancient Egypt as holy water dispensers. At the turn of the century, phonographs were popular as both cheap entertainment and as a convenient way to listen to popular music. While the player piano, another form of automatic entertainment, was fair competition to the phonograph, it eventually lost the selection-rejection process with the rise of the record industry.
Before the jukebox, individuals primarily listened to music at live, formal, or informal concert venues. In addition to the key pieces of technology discussed, technological antecedents to the jukebox include player pianos, another form of automatic entertainer, as well as decorative music boxes that were popular centuries prior. Regardless, the jukebox filled a need in the popular culture that had not yet been met.
The record industry grew alongside the development of recordable and playable sound. While initially successful on its own and enjoying yearly profits of up to $106 million in 1921, the young record industry struggled in the 1920s due to prohibition and eventually the Great Depression. When matters looked bleak for the record industry and, by extension, the jukebox, Columbia Broadcasting System, or CBS radio network, purchased major record companies and, by default, allowed the jukebox to remain in the public sphere. Ultimately, the jukebox proved to be cost-effective for businesses and customers, as businesses could make quick profits on entertainment without hiring costly live music, and customers could quickly and cheaply enjoy their favorite music like never before. While the radio was a strong form of competition for the phonograph allowed individuals to listen to music on demand rather than at the schedule of the radio station. Eventually, the increasingly fast-paced nature of the music industry would urge jukebox companies to produce better and more capable jukeboxes, allowing these devices to enter into a golden age in the post-war period.
That old jukebox won't be playing.
So just what did the golden age of the jukebox look like? During World War II, jukebox production was temporarily halted in order for companies to produce goods for the war effort. However, in 1946, production would resume, and the big four jukebox companies, Wurlitzer, Seeburg, Rock-Ola, and AMI, would enjoy many years of success. Wurlitzer, a German music company, became prominent in America when they manufactured drums and other instruments for the U.S. military in the 17th century. In 1933, recognizing the success of the automatic entertainers, they would introduce their first coin-operated phonograph. By 1937, Wurlitzer had sold over 100,000 phonographs, dominating the jukebox industry. Wurlitzer's biggest competition, Seeburg, also got their start with manufacturing of player pianos, but in 1928, Swedish-born Justus P. Seeburg would invent the autophone, a Ferris wheel-style 8-selection jukebox. Seeburg posed major competition for Wurlitzer when they eventually manufactured a jukebox that could play 50 records, or 100 sides, at once. A third company, Rock-Ola, began when David Collin Rock-Ola saw lucrative business opportunities by manufacturing slot machines, one of the key technological components of the jukebox. By 1935, Rock-Ola had transitioned into phonograph manufacturing after he produced his own record selection mechanism that would provide competition for Wurlitzer and Seeburg. Despite a failed $1 million lawsuit against Rock-Ola by Wurlitzer in the late 1930s, Rock-Ola would enjoy success in the jukebox industry with their 1422, 1426, and 1428 models being most recognizable. The last of the big four companies was AMI, originally known as Rowe Manufacturing Company. Currently, AMI is one of the few remaining companies that produce a modern version of the jukebox. All of the big four companies saw ways to enter the lucrative phonograph industry due to either their history in music industry or due to their capacity of making components used in the jukebox. But what about the role of the jukebox in American culture? After World War II, Americans desired a sense of freedom and stability that had not been present during the war, the Great Depression, or Prohibition. With this stability came the emergence of new cultures, significantly meant for children and teenagers. Young Americans sought hangout spots, such as restaurants and diners, where they could partake in popular music culture. The same sense of stability that created a new form of youth culture allowed the jukebox to prosper without constraints of Prohibition, the Great Depression, or World War II. At the height of its popularity, the jukebox did not have to compete with the radio as it did in the 1930s, but rather was a popular trend sweeping the nation. Younger generations enjoyed listening to rock and roll, and the popularity of the 45 RPM single skyrocketed. While long-term popular success of the jukebox was short-lived as new music playing devices were invented in the late 1960s and onward, the jukebox will forever remain an iconic staple of American 1950s landscape, whose success was very much in line with the trends and fads of the era.
How exactly did the jukebox decline? Let's take a look at competing pieces of technology. To begin, the vinyl record started to fall out of favor as alternatives were invented, due to its sensitivity to wear and tear, humidity, heat, dust, and the likelihood of cracking. The introduction of the portable radio, followed by the cassette tape and the tape deck, proved to be competition to the jukebox. Because these inventions could travel anywhere, Americans had the ability to take popular music with them at all times. Instead of going to a restaurant or diner to listen to popular music, people could simply listen to their favorite bands and songs on a specific cassette tape. As early as 1974, Wurlitzer stopped producing jukeboxes after they released the 1050 model. Even so, this model was not lucrative enough to revitalize their role in the market, so the company left the market entirely. After decades of involvement with automatic entertainers in the jukebox. Wurlitzer's exit from the market caused the number of jukeboxes made to decline to only 25,000 a year globally. This is a significant decline compared to the almost 700,000 jukeboxes produced in the United States in the 1950s. Just as its development and rise to popularity took over a number of decades, the decline of the jukebox, too, took a number of decades. Each new music playing and entertainment device offered additional assets of portability, personalization, and ease that the jukebox could not. As companies left the jukebox market in pursuit of modern alternatives, the existing jukeboxes themselves saw a steep decline in profit. By 1980, jukeboxes made lower profits due to costlier vinyls, rising royalty fees, and declining public interest.
You can hear those jukebox jumping all night and all.
So what happened to the big four jukebox companies, and where, if at all, is the jukebox today? Despite the decline of the jukebox by the 1970s, it is still possible to see modern versions of the jukebox today, due to modern technologies being used to create new jukeboxes that brought select components from their mid-century antecedents. One example of this are the TouchTunes digital jukeboxes that utilize a touchscreen and music database. Like jukeboxes of the past, they can be found wall-mounted in restaurants, bars, and entertainment centers. AMI, one of the big four jukebox companies, also manufactured these devices. So how do we remember the jukebox? While the word jukebox itself has a slightly muddled history, with debate existing over the exact origins of the meaning of the word juke, it has now come to be synonymous with the time of mid-century American popular culture. In the figurative sense, jukebox can now refer to a sense of popular culture from days past, such as the memory of listening to music with friends or family, or the bright lights of music that embodied the lighter aspects of the 1950s. While many jukeboxes live on forever in museums, living models can still be found today, both in select classic models as well as the digitized models made by TouchTunes and AMI Row. The presence of these jukeboxes, even if they are few in numbers and just for fun, are connected to the strong impact held by the jukebox in American popular culture and memory. Between its beautiful glittering colors and memories attached to listening to swing, jazz, and rock and roll music, the jukebox holds a special place in mid-20th century nostalgia.
Ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time.